So when they were setting up the agenda today, they said, so you're going to be the last speaker, and then people are going to get food. And I said, no way. I am not going to be the person standing between you and lunch. I said, switch it around, have them get food, have them come back in, and I'll talk over the utensils. I'm fine with that. So the reason I'm up here is one of the things we've heard as feedback from the last two Broadband and Innovation Summits was that we're in York Region, we're at the York Region's Broadband and Innovation Summit, and nobody from York Region got up and talked about what was going on. And so we thought, hey, gee, that's a really good idea. And it's one of the reasons we had Jane come and speak about Venture Lab. We are a very proud founding member of Venture Lab, and I sit on the Venture Lab board. They're doing wonderful work, and it hasn't been a 6 quiet years. It's been 6 under the radar years, and now she's quite right. Now is the time to elevate, and we're working very closely with them to make that happen. So I'm going to give you a quick update on a number of items that relate to the region's initiatives on broadband. I know some of you saw me give a version of this at our last broadband advisory task force meeting, and some of you will recall that I did tell you then that I was in between eye surgeries, and so I had a really good eye and a really bad eye, and I couldn't wear glasses. So I was doing kind of a lot of this, during that presentation. And the good news is I've had the second surgery done. Thanks very much. And talk about South Lake Hospital. We've heard a lot about that today. They have a phenomenal cataract clinic there. I can't say enough about that hospital and the surgeons and the staff. It's been a life-changing experience for me to be able to not wear glasses and see 20/20. It's amazing stuff. But the final result of that is I can't read anything without cheaters now. So I'm not going to be doing this and this, but I'm going to have to stick my cheaters on so I can deliver this to you. So I'm just going to be talking very briefly about 3 major initiatives that probably most of you have been hearing about, and there's some significant things happening, and we wanted to bring everybody up to speed. So our YTN, York Telecom Network, the Connect to Innovate funding application that the region has made with various partners, many of them in the room, with respect to funding for rural broadband, and finally what we're doing with our Intelligent Community Initiative. So many of you will know that York Region has been working over the last several years to develop our dark fiber network into a full business to help move the needle on connectivity across the region. Just quickly, for those who may not know, York Region has developed and owns a 200-kilometer network of high-speed fiber that we started to develop in 2002 to serve ourselves and just connect our buildings and facilities and some of our IoT things in a much more efficient way. And as our network grew, we started to connect and help some of our municipal partners connect, and so we now have municipalities and school boards, hospitals, the police, and others in the MUSH sector who are part of that network. But our council recognized that there was an opportunity here to leverage that asset that would benefit the entire York Region community. And so we went on about a 3-year journey to look at our facilities and look at models and decide how to move forward. And I'm very, very pleased to say that in March of this year, council gave us permission to set up our York Telecom network as a wholly owned subsidiary of the region under the Ontario Business Corporations Act, interestingly enough, with the ability to serve not only ourselves and our MUSH partners, but for the first time to actually do business with the private sector with internet service providers. And that all with the idea of getting ready to launch in January of 2019. So I'm here to tell you that we're really, really pleased that a week ago Thursday, Regional Council approved the necessary agreements and bylaws, and YTN Telecom Network, Inc. is now officially a corporation ready to do business. As Mayor Van Bynen noted earlier at last week's council meeting, one of the other things that happened was that first board of directors for this new corporation was formed. I'm very pleased to say Mayor Van Bynen, who's here, and Mayor Pellegrini, who was here earlier but had to leave, are both members, as well as there's 8 members of our regional council sit on our new board. And the other thing I'm really pleased to say is that Council at that meeting also confirmed the appointment of Laura Bradley as the first General Manager of the YTN Telecom Network, Inc. Laura is here. Stand up, please, Laura. So, I mean, Laura comes to us with a whole world of experience from across Ontario and Canada in terms of setting up and running networks and working with all levels of government to make things happen. And so I would encourage you, we now have a real business with a real general manager, and I would encourage you, if you want, to introduce yourself to Laura, because you're going to be hearing a lot more about her. So I won't go through the list that's on the screen. I will just say that what's happening right now is that we are in our 2018 budget process at the region, and we are finalizing a YTN budget along with our budget to set up this new operation, and so that will be approved as part of the 2018 budget, hopefully in December, and then everything starts to really move in January. And there's a lot of internal work happening to make sure that all gets sorted out. So the second thing I want to update you on, and some of you are probably really interested and anxious and wondering what's going on, is the Connect to Innovate funding application that the region filed. So just as a reminder, in December of 2016, the federal government announced and launched the Connect to Innovate funding program, which was a $500 million fund to be dispersed over 3 years with a focus to improve broadband connectivity in rural and remote areas across Canada. So the region and a number of the municipalities and some partners got together, and we filed an application to the value of $18.5 million with a $6 million contribution from York Region and contributions from the town of Georgina and the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as funding partners to put forward a 200-kilometer extension to our existing 200-kilometer network. With all those new 200 kilometers happening, as you can see on the loops on the screen, covering the majority of our rural areas across York Region, and effectively doubling our footprint and bringing some very, very much needed connectivity to our rural areas. And I think this is the point where I would like to thank the task force, members of the Broadband task force that ran for 2 years. They had their last meeting last month, and that task force wrapped up. But that task force provided so much direction and advice to us and to the corporation to move forward and give council the confidence that we were moving in the right direction and making some very significant commitments. So, starting a new company and putting $6 million on the table for broadband are not small decisions for council to make, and so I want to thank them. Now, on the program itself, of course, our application's in, the application's closed. They got 900 plus proposals with a value at $4.4 billion. I think the math says that's about 8 times oversubscribed. So you can see it's a very, very competitive cross-Canada competition. I won't go through all of the details of who's applied. It's on the screen. The math says so far 104 million, or just over 20% of the funds, have already been announced. And the remaining announcements for disbursements are to come over the next month, before the end of the year, the next month or so. And so we are, I can tell you that we are actively working with many partners to converse with the federal government to, we haven't got an announcement yet, we're working on it. And there's nothing certain in this at this point in time, nothing we can announce and say with any certainty. But one of the things, we're going to get a little cheeky here, and I showed this at the task force meeting. We don't want it lost, the fact to be lost that when you look at the entire Southern Ontario context, there are 2 very large organizations that have received significant funding over the last little while from both the federal and provincial governments. And you'll all know them. EORN is the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, and SWIFT, and I'm not even going to take a shot at the acronym because I forget. But anyway, the Southwest Wardens Caucus got together and put together an initiative. They've received funding, significant funding. And if you notice on the diagram, there's a bit of, in Southern Ontario, there's this kind of hole in the donut. and York Region's kind of in the middle and prominent in that hole in the donut. And I think the message we're delivering to the federal government, to the CTI program, is that, and no disrespect to the federal government, they announced $37 million for the Ring of Fire area in Northern Ontario, and it will connect 600 homes. Now, understand, they don't have any connectivity, so that's a really important thing, and we applaud the government for doing that. That's the kind of investment that needs to happen to get connectivity. But what we're telling the federal government is that the people who are in between Nobleton and Schaumburg and King, or between Sutton and Keswick and Georgina, are in no different a situation than the people in Northern Ontario. We've demonstrated to them in our application that there is, in some cases, no connectivity or absolutely terrible connectivity within eyesight, as David Tooley and Richard Stovall likes to say. You can see the CN Tower, but we can't connect to it. And so I think that's the message we're delivering, and we have keep your fingers crossed. We're working away at it. And lastly, my last update is on the Intelligent Community Forum, and I was really pleased that Joel actually mentioned this when he was talking about, how do you curate this? How do you decide between different service providers? I mean, IBM and Cisco and Oracle and all these companies and service providers, they all have technologies, and of course, while they want to help, they also want to sell. And so how does a community make a decision about which way to go and what's the best route? That's why we're working with the Intelligent Community Forum. I'm really pleased that John Young is here from the ICF, and I'll be talking about him in a second when I get to one of my later slides. But we've been working with the Intelligent Community Forum for almost 2 years now, and in a more official capacity over the last year, and I'll get to that in a second. But they have, as Joel says, there are organizations like ICF out there who provide that curation and provide that neutral advice, the Switzerland advice on what are the different options and what are other people doing. So I want to talk a little bit about, okay, it's coming on the screen. So I want to talk a little bit what we're doing, what ICF offers, and what we're actually doing with them. So there's really 3 areas that ICF does. They have an annual ICF summit. They bring together communities from around the world on an annual basis, and it's a great place to network and understand and meet and talk about where you're going, where you want to go, and get advice from others. More importantly, they have what's called a Community Accelerator Program. And we've actually formally joined this Community Accelerator Program, and it's a pay-to-play program. So we're providing funding to ICF, and they're providing us with a number of things. There's 4 steps in that. The first is called Keynote, and if you were here last year, you would have heard Robert Bell from ICF deliver our keynote address. And that's really about just bringing the community together to understand what's next, what ICF's all about, what intelligent communities are all about, and what the opportunities are. The second is a masterclass. That's bringing your community together, some of the leaders in the community. We did that in January of this year, just to talk through the whole ICF model, talk about their 6 pillars, talk about the strengths we have and some of the gaps, and sort of get some more community-wide engagement on the process. The third is the metrics side, and I think this is one of the most important steps, and we're in the midst of that right now. We're actually wrapping that up right now. What ICF does is they provide you with a list of questions to answer. I think there's 33. And they give that to your community, and you go to the community, the stakeholders in the community, and you get those questions answered, and you provide that back to ICF, all that data and that information, and they do an analysis, and they feed back to you and tell you, okay, here's your strengths, and here's some of the gaps, and here's some of the things, some suggestions in terms of here's a path forward to take yourself to the next level. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about getting better. It's about raising the bar. Lastly, and just on that particular point, we've completed that process. We actually did that with all 9 communities. So the region completed the form, but then we went around to all 9 of the communities and allowed the communities to bring together their own groups to answer the questions. So we actually got 10 questionnaires answered. We submitted those all to ICF. And not only is the region getting a report back at the regional level, each individual municipality in York Region is also getting that report back. So everybody's going to have a takeaway from that process in terms of what do we need to work on, what do we need to do to move forward. And the last piece is on the mentoring side. I mean, the Intelligent Community Forum now has 160 communities. There's maybe a few more after the last summit, but about 160 communities across the globe, cities, regions, small towns of all different shapes and sizes and configurations, that all have had a different experience in terms of coming together and moving forward on the intelligent community side. And so what ICF does in the mentoring program is actually hooks us up with others across the globe with similar challenges, with similar profiles. So we actually are going to be hooked up and get direct advice from those that have been through that process that look a lot like us. And lastly, it's the awards. And they have a robust and well-recognized remote award program. It starts at the Smart 21, goes to the top 7, and ends up in Intelligent Community of the Year. So the region did submit this year an application to be considered for the Smart 21. That announcement happens tonight in New York City. So before John leaves, if you just want to give him a tap and say, we're all behind this, John. So we were kind of, actually, we said to John, he said he was coming to the conference, and we said, can you make the announcement here? And he said, no, it's happening tonight in New York City. So we were hoping to have an announcement, and we'll have to wait till tomorrow. But we'll let you all know. Believe me, if we get on the top 21, that Smart 21 list, you'll be hearing from us. Right here. And so, again, what's next? We're going to work on this whole analysis on the metrics side. We're then going to launch into the mentoring side. And believe me, if we make top Smart 21, the region will be submitting for top 7. It's voluntary. If you make the Smart 21, you don't have to apply to be a top 7. We plan on doing that. If you're successful at the top 7, your name is automatically put in for Intelligent Community of the Year, and that's announced at the annual conference. It's happening in June in London, England. Anyway, so we're very hopeful. And really, that's it. I really appreciate the opportunity to give this update to everybody. I'm open to answer questions. I told Mark I'll take questions if people actually have questions. And but I want to thank you on behalf of York Region for being here and attending and participating and making this a really successful event. So with that, thanks very much.